All right, everyone, welcome to a very special episode of Greedy Keeps. Today we're discussing Malcom and Tana, one of the new Temur builds that's going around right now. I have one of the primary brewers of the deck, the person who introduced me to it, Libertas. Hello, Libertas.
Hello, Brayden. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to talk about this deck. I think it's probably the best Temur deck right now. I know that's like a pretty
Absolutely.
wild take for some, but Temur really needed like a win condition and a good commander, and Malcom and Tana, I think, is like the real deal.
Absolutely. This deck has surprised me in its power level for sure.
Yeah, so I guess we should explain what the deck does first. So Malcom is a 3-mana 2/2 with flying, and it says whenever one or more pirates deals damage to an opponent, you create a treasure token for each opponent who has dealt damage. So it's kind of like Timna, where if you deal if you deal damage to two opponents, you get two cards. If two pirates deal damage to two opponents, you'll get two treasures. If three pirates deal damage to one opponent, you'll get one treasure. So it works that way.
Yeah,
It has
and
a really
everyone knows.
cool.
hmm
It has a really cool combo with Buccaneer. Which Buccaneer is it?
Glinthorn Buccaneer.
Glinthorn Buccaneer. So Glinthorn Buccaneer says whenever you discard a card, you deal one damage to each opponent. So triggers Malcom 3 times, and then it also has an ability which says pay one in a red, discard a card, draw a card. You may only activate this ability during combat. Thankfully, it also has haste, so that's not really
Yeah.
a problem. So
It's
yeah,
also a 2/4 and it costs double red and one colorless, so it's a 3-drop, which means it's a pretty easy combo to get out early in the game, which is also super important.
yeah. I think the fact that Malcom like races you out towards mana. There's a really cool interaction actually in the deck that I think is not obvious at first. You can play the breacher, right? Attack with not the breacher, the uh, the buccaneer. You can play buccaneer and Malcom. You like
Yeah.
tap
hmm
out for you. Let's say you play Malcom on turn 2 off of like a pedal or something, and
hmm
on turn 3 you play the buccaneer. You can attack with Malcom and the buccaneer, deal damage to two opponents, then in your post damage, but before the end of during the end of combat, you'll have two treasures,
hmm
and then you can activate Buccaneer while he's still attacking and win, which is like really sick.
Yeah, no, it's super strong, it's super powerful. I've gotten a lot of people a lot of times with that particular aspect of the combo.
Yeah, where they don't think it works and
Right, and then you're
definitely
like,
works.
no, no, it actually works, and you're all dead.
Yeah, I think that's like anytime a combo kind of works that way is like actually upside, right? Like anytime a combo has a niche interaction like that, it's actually more good than bad.
Yeah, no, it's been really fun. I have to admit, I've enjoyed this deck way more than I thought I would.
Are you on the curiosity effects too? Should we mention those?
Okay, sure. The curiosity effects, we have argued over Keen Sense. If you're gonna run a curiosity effect, definitely run Keen Sense because we're better at making green than, or we want to be able to use our green mana for value engines versus our blue mana because we want to keep up interaction.
Yeah.
Um,
It also
don't,
dodges Pyroblast, where if you're just like putting it on Buccaneer,
yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
dodging Pyroblast is like really nice.
So Keen Sense is not really good in a combo sense. It's just the Glinthorn combo is so much more consistent. The argument for having it in the deck is that it allows you to draw a card per turn with Malcolm, which is pretty powerful. We're not currently running it in our list because it's just we don't really have room for it. Instead, we are opting out to run more just other card value or other cards that draw us cards instead. We just think that there's better effects out there. But there is an argument for it too, as well, as far as Stax goes, because there is a really big threat when playing this deck, and that's Null Rod. Because Null Rod doesn't allow our treasures to activate for mana, right? Which is a super important aspect of our combo. So if ever a curse or a Null Rod enters the battlefield, sometimes the Keen Sense can be kind of a backup line with the Malcolm or another
It
scenario.
also it also gets you under like a Draenith Magistrate, right?
Right, absolutely. Or if, yeah, exactly. You don't have access to Malcolm or someone's killed it like 2 or 3 times. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of another way you can go. But we feel right now that if the game's gonna go that long, that the Underworld breach lines do just fine.
Yeah, I think I'm actually in favor of them just because, like, I think on turn 3, just like putting it on Malcolm, drawing a card, and making a treasure is like kind of insane. Uh,
It's not bad, but if someone kills Malcolm, Malcolm does often get removed, especially as you play this Git deck against the same people more than once,
yeah,
because then they start to realize that Malcolm's actually important and is a huge value engine. So if Malcolm gets removed, then you lose that value engine forever.
I also like am super tempted to play like if you play the Lightning Rig Crew, I think is what it's called. It's like really cute. I know it's a 3 mana 0/5 that says tap, deal 1 damage to each opponent, and whenever you play a pirate, untap it. You're never gonna untap it probably. I mean, maybe one day, but the
It's
cool thing
really
is,
cute. I love the card, and originally it was being played in the Malcolm lists until I came along. But it's just the reason that it's just not good in the CDH variant is that it doesn't ramp you into turn 2 Malcolm at all.
yeah, that's true. Although it does really cool stuff with. So I've been like testing a conquest version of the list, and one thing I found is that if you play it before Malcolm, it makes the Malcolm like so like if you play the Rig Crew on turn 3 instead of Malcolm, and then on turn 3 you play turn turn 2 you play the Rig Crew, turn 3 you play Malcolm. Your Malcolm is like free effectively. Um, and then it also does really cool stuff where you tap it for 3. You tap it for 3 mana effectively, right? Then
Yeah.
you play the Brazen Buccaneer, which untaps
Mhm.
it, and then you can tap it for 3 more mana. Which sounds really cute, but I mean that actually does happen. Like if you play the Goblin Rig Crew, um, but
Mhm.
beforehand, so that's like where I found it to be like, and then also like that makes your Keen Senses like way more valuable, right? It's like now you have 3 cards in your deck: your commander, this Rig Crew, and the Buccaneer. All 3 of those cards are like really, really, really good with Keen Sense. So
Right. Yeah. I guess you could put it that way. But I just can't find myself running the rig crew. It's just it feels a little too cute. Like the
yeah,
card quality, I think needs to be a little better. I think
it's
that
like
we have options.
Fabro. I think it's like Faber Elder, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a better Faber or Elder if you have
I don't.
Malcolm.
Yeah, better. It's like roughly Faber Elder. I think it's Faber Elder, and then it kind of like makes a few cards in your deck just kind of insane.
Yeah.
Which is like I don't think that's a horrible place to be.
No,
Um,
it's not. You could argue for it. I just yeah, I just feel like at that point, generally you're trying to get Malcolm out in turn 2, and it doesn't help with that. And after that, you generally don't ever need mana again.
that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. So I just I it also is. I mean, if you have a Malcolm in play and a Breach in play, you're probably already there. But it is really sick with Breach, where you can kind of like storm off with it by playing some of the pirates in your deck.
Yeah, yeah. If you could find a way to sack them, that's interesting. Or
Yeah.
balance them. Yeah.
Siren Storm Tamer is kind of cute like that.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
also another really cute card, and I mean, it's like a 1 drop that makes you 1 mana every turn and can protect your combo piece. But then again, we're not looking for things that make more mana after Malcolm's out. We're looking for
yeah,
things that either
exactly.
draw us cards or get our combo onto the battlefield.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for
Yeah.
sure. Uh, it's one of the upsides of the Conquest deck is you get to play more pirates.
Yes, for sure.
um, all right, so we should probably get into the actual keeps now that we've talked about my pet cards for about 10 minutes. So the first hand we have here is a Scalding Tarn, a Jessica's Will, a Rejuvenating Springs, a Lotus Petal, a Polluted Delta, a Vexing Shusher, and an Underworld Breach. What do you think?
This hand's okay. It's not great at all, or by any means. You have the turn 2 Malcolm with the Lotus Petal. That is extremely important. You have Vexing Shusher, which I guess kind of gives you a little bit of interaction, because you can make other people's counters more effective and also makes your combo uncounterable. Um, but we have Jessica's Will, which is a really good follow-up to Malcolm because, you can just literally cast Jessica's Will and reveal a Glinthorn Buccaneer and win, or a
Yeah.
Wheel effect. which would be,
Especially with the Vexing Shusher in hand.
yeah, no,
Like,
it'd be insane. So this hand has potential. I don't see much interaction in the hand besides Vexing Shusher. Um,
yeah. If you the thing is Jessica's Will plus a wheel is a combo with Underworld Breach.
yeah,
So is Lotus Petal is also very useful on breach turns.
true, very true.
So there is this is actually like a very breach. I think this is like a hand that like really is like leaning on the breach to like kind of put things
Yeah,
together.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, you know what? This hand has the ability, like, if you end up just doing nothing after your third turn, you can just cast Breach and then cast Jessica's Will again from your graveyard.
Yeah, and maybe even multiple times because you do have the two fetches
Right.
here. Um,
And you have the Lotus Petal. So, I mean, there's a
yeah,
good argument here. I'd be willing to adventure with this hand. Um,
yeah. I think it really depends on like how good you think Jessica's Will is.
right. It's our deck runs it well, but it's definitely not as good in our deck as it is in others because, you know, we just don't have as many red spells as some other ones do. But
Yeah,
it's still a very good card in our deck.
I think this is also a hand that like a Mox Diamond would do pretty incredible things. Like if you just draw a
Yeah.
Mox Diamond off the top, obviously that's like one card in your deck, but you get to put the Rejuvenating Springs in the graveyard. You have the two fetches for Breach. You have the Lotus Petal. You can play turn one Malcolm, which is a turn two Jessica's Will, which is like kind of insane. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm. I think it's like you can probably get greedy. I'd
Yeah,
probably
this is
be
this
tempted
is
to
a greedy
mulligan.
hand. You're definitely relying on that Jessica's Will and what you draw.
And
You
honestly,
could
it's very
totally
likely that Jessica's Will gets countered if your opponents are like afraid of you at all. So maybe you're
right.
supposed to just mulligan this and be
Um,
honest with yourself.
in game, this hand's tempting, but in game, I probably would mulligan this hand.
All right, let's go to our second seven. Jeweled Lotus,
Oh,
Rhystic Study,
this
Ancient Tomb, Pyroblast, Vesking Shusher, Mystical Tutor, Finhorn Elves. This hand's pretty
this hand's
disgusting.
gas. This hand's gas. So
So
you notice we have no colored lands, right? But
that
we have
doesn't
Jeweled Lotus
matter.
and we have Malcolm.
Yeah,
So our deck, yeah, it can cheat the system in that way with Malcolm. So
this is definitely a turn two Rhystic Study.
absolutely,
And it's very likely that if you hit a land off the top, it's going to be a turn two Rhystic Study with Pyroblast or backup.
absolutely.
If you hit a blue source or a red source, in the worst case scenario, if you hit a green source, you just play the Finhorn Elves.
No, this hand's good, and plus we have a way to get Glinthorn or something, some other YouTube. Well, we have a tutor here, which is really powerful. Mystical
Especially,
tutor.
yeah.
It's one of the
Mm-hmm.
best in our deck, and tutors are highly like tutors like Mystical Tutor are really good in this deck. I'm just mean having them in your opening hand is good because like we don't have as many good tutors as Black does, right? So to have an opening hand with a good tutor in it is pretty awesome.
And protection with the Vexing Shusher.
Oh yeah, with the protection from the Vexing Shusher, Pyroblast, and we also have Finhorn Helves in case we draw a land and our Rhystic Study doesn't get countered, right? To ramp even
Yeah,
more. So
I
I
do
like
like
this
the
hand.
idea of playing the Finhorn Elves on turn two if you don't have to protect your Rhystic Study, largely because it means that you can Mystical Tutor for an Eldritch Evolution,
Yep,
and then you
exactly,
just win. So it's like a
absolutely.
turn three win on board, assuming you hit a land, right?
Yeah, if you draw a land your first two turns, you win on turn three.
Yeah, and if you draw another land, you
We
have
have
protection with Pyroblast
yeah, or I
and a
mean
Rhystic Study. You'll have a turn one
yeah,
Malcolm
we'll
on
have a
turn two
Rhystic
Rhystic
Study here.
Study, and if you hit a land, you'll have a turn three win after resolving a Rhystic Study with protection. So that's
Right,
kind of
no,
insane. This
this
is
hand
like the
is
nuts.
really good. This hand's good. I like this hand.
All right, let's go to our first seven. Windswept Heath, Birds of Paradise, Force of Will, Guy's Cradle, Bloom Tender, Silvering, Stomping Grounds.
Okay, so the Force of Will is useless in this hand. We do have
You
turn one
can hard
Malcolm.
cast it. You can hard cast it with this
Yeah,
hand.
you're right. You could. You could. That's very true. This deck can do that. Oh well. First off, I'm just going to tell you this hand is a mulligan because we're not doing anything besides making mana, and I think
Mhm.
that's one of the traps that you fall into with this deck. You're like, whoa, I can make all this value. I can make all these treasures. I can get all this mana, and then as the game goes on, you're like, shit, I have nothing to do with it, and you just slowly sit there and die to whatever else, to whether to the rest of the pod. I think it's crucial to keep hands that have some kind of draw or some kind of tutors or some kind of tutor. Very important.
All
So
right,
I would say this is a mulligan.
sure. Second 7. Breeding Pool, Training Center, Mental Misstep, Worldly Tutor, Brain Freeze, Swan Song, Winds of Teeth. Um, this is an awkward hand, right?
Yeah,
Very interactive.
I love Worldly Tutor. We do not have turn 2 Malcolm, which
It's kind of necessary.
it's quite necessary for this deck. We do have counter magic to slow down the game a bit, but really this hand isn't going anywhere either. I'd go down to 6 here.
Yeah, I will say, like, do you think a
Wait,
6?
wait. Actually, you could. There is an argument for Worldly Tutor into Dockside.
I was about to make that exact argument. I was going to say, do you think a 6 where you just replace, like, you just go down a card, but you replace it with Dockside? Like, that's kind of what this hand is, right? Is like you're
Yeah,
down a
actually,
card in terms of card advantage, but you're going to get a Dockside, which is going to play your Malcolm.
I mean,
Like, what do you think of that? Because
like,
then this is a very interactive hand with Brain Freeze, so it actually, like, you could theoretically Brain Freeze yourself once you hit, like, a end
right.
tutor.
You could. Yeah, that's true. You could keep this hand. Like, I mean, this deck has a lot of keepable hands, but I'm just really greedy when it comes to my mulligan.
I think you're supposed to mulligan this, but it is notable. Um,
Right,
there
because
maybe if one of these cards was different, you might say, "Hey, I can get a Dockside,"
yeah,
but then you're betting on your Dockside making 3,
I
and
mean,
then you do
Dockside's
absolutely nothing
amazing, but it's
otherwise.
not as amazing in this deck as some other decks because we don't have immediate outlets for Dockside a lot of the time. Like we
It's just
can't.
a creature that makes more treasures, like,
Right. Like I
and then
mean,
you can't
Tana
really use
is
those
really
treasures.
good, but it's almost kind of underrated in this deck.
All right, let's go to 6. Finhorn Elves, Ristic Study, Glinthorn Buccaneers, Stomping Grounds, Flusterstone Forcible, Pact Negation.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
Uh,
This is a 6. We only have one land and Finhornels, so we're kind of dependent upon what we draw.
yeah,
But this is
I
pretty
think I go to,
tempting.
I think I go to 5 on this one.
All right, yeah, I would go with that.
Mana Confluence, Abrade, Pact Negation, Island, Floated Strand, Bloom Tender, Stomping Grounds. I mean, you just have to keep this, and you're not
Yeah.
happy about it. You throw away probably the Flood Strand and the Island. You play a turn 2 Bloom Tender. You play
Yeah.
Malcolm on turn 3.
Yeah, this is sad, but I don't think you're
Yeah,
going
sometimes.
lower.
Yeah, and you can at least hold the Pact Negation and know you can pay for it. You know,
Yeah,
just on turn 4, maybe.
right. That's kind of the cool thing with Pact in this deck is a lot of times you can pay it
Yeah.
early in game.
All right, fresh 7. Arid Mesa, Pyroblast, Gitaxian Prode, Wild Growth, Calling Tarn, Lion's Island, Muddle Mixture. You actually have that Muddle Mixture represents an Underworld Breach. You
Hmm.
have Ramp. You have your Lion's Side Diamond, which is very good with Underworld Breach, obviously.
Yeah,
I think this is like
this is cute.
this is good. I mean,
You have a card draw. You have a way to draw a second card in your first turn too with Taxiing Probe.
yeah, and you get some information too. So
Absolutely. So I mean,
and
like just having that little bit of extra card draw is pretty crucial too. Like it just makes it
yeah.
feel a lot better. And having muddle mixture is also super important. You know, just because you can just, if you really need to, you can also just tutor Finale Devastation.
Oh, that's a good point.
For the
You can
Glinthorn.
actually, yeah, wow, actually, that's pretty good too because you can just tutor up Finale Devastation, sack LED in response, um, and that pays for half your Finale if you have enough mana. So that's kind of sick.
Yeah, no, it's definitely this is good. I like. Yeah, no, this is actually that's a really good point. You could sack the LED in response. That is super strong here. No, this is good. This could probably turn into a turn 3 win.
Yeah, if you hit like a dork or something,
Right. It's very possible
or
here.
a docs, even like a dock side would probably get you there, right? Like,
Right. And like, if you draw something else good too, you know, you can just muddle and you don't have the mana to play it, you know. Muddled
yeah, I
mixture
mean, if
also
you,
just it's
yeah, I
dockside.
mean, if you draw a brain freeze here or an underworld breach, I mean, that's also
Yeah,
like pretty insane too. You could probably win on turn
well,
3
muddle
there.
the mixture, yeah, it can also, you know, transmute for the brain freeze if you end up
Yeah,
drawing the underworld breach. So I like this
yeah,
hand. I'd keep it.
yeah, and also like well, make sure it's interaction. You know,
Hmm. Yeah. No,
it
muddle
could.
mixture is a great card in the deck.
All
It's
right,
paid off for me.
so let's get a first 7. Pluto Delta, Snap, Mystic Remora, Mana Drain, Finhorn Elves, Red Elemental Blast, Eternal Witness. Yeah, I mean you have Eternal Mystic
Yeah.
Remora.
Like I mean, that's
Yeah,
almost always a keep.
yeah. Yeah, and if you draw another land, you might even be able to, you know, consider playing a Malcolm first or something. Uh, I think it's actually like very fair to like not play a turn one Mystic Remora a lot of times. If you think you're gonna get it wheeled away, that's different. But
Yeah,
I
no,
have
I
I have no problem like
uh-huh.
ramping for a turn and then playing the Mystic Remora so that you can like hold up a piece of interaction like this Mana Drain or Red Elemental Blast.
Right.
Or
Absolutely. That's my experience with the deck too. Sometimes you'd go with Malcolm over Mystic Gamora. Here I say turn one Mystic Gamora is a little more crucial because you only have one land. You kind of
yeah,
want to draw some more.
yeah, that's fair. But the thing is, you lose it if you don't draw another land. Like you're like so you've lost so much tempo because now you have to play the Finhorn Elves.
Yeah, I mean there's definitely some risk in this hand
Yeah.
for
All right,
sure.
but it's definitely a keep.
Yeah, I'd keep it.
All right, first 7. Finale Devastation, Swan Song, Mana Vault, Cyclonic Rift, Mana Confluence, Ancient Tomb, Time Twister.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
this is pretty good. I think you probably do cast a Time Twister on turn 2 with 2 mana up,
Yeah.
right? Like
That is very tempting here.
or 3 mana up.
Like
No,
I
three
mean,
mana.
there's a world where you sit back and you just try Finale Devastation, your Glint Horn, if you draw the right
Yeah,
cards. But, like
yeah,
I mean, this deck runs really good with wheels. It's the wheels support our breach lines well. And also, it's like an A plus B with Hull Breacher. Um, but it also is really good at just refilling our hand because a lot of times this deck will just dump its hand.
yeah. Also, I think just the fact that you can finale for Buccaneer here on turn 2 if you draw another green source is pretty insane.
Right, absolutely. Or even Dockside,
Yeah.
Time Twister.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
This hand gives you options.
Yeah, sure. One cool thing about Dockside in this deck is he creates treasures after you play him, which is kind of insane.
Oh yeah, it's good.
All
Yeah,
right.
I like the hand.
You'd keep this?
Yeah, I'd keep this.
All right. Fresh 7. Pact Negation, Arid Mesa, Wood Foothills, Jeweled Lotus, Mystical Tutor, Mental Mystic, Portal Calling.
Yes.
Uh, this is one of the worst Portal Calling hands, though. This is like one of
Oh
the hands
yeah,
where you really
quarter
see
calling
like,
isn't amazing here, but turn one Malcolm plus mystical tutor and interaction is sweet.
yeah, you definitely keep this. What do you
Um,
court for? Or what do you Mystical Tutor for?
you mystical.
It,
Okay, let me. Well, it depends on how the game goes, obviously, but probably just a tutor for Glinthorn here since you already have interaction up. So a tutor for Glinthorn. He's generally going to be finale. Oh, no, Eldritch. Oh, we don't have a dork.
I
Yeah,
think you
no.
get like a Fierce Guardianship, to be honest, and then you just like you
Wait
go
for a
all in.
Yeah, I guess you could get a fierce, and then you can just like grind and make mana for cord, or just
Yeah.
wait from what you draw. I like the hand. It gives you options. I'm not sure that I would go for a tutor for Glinthorn. Yeah, no, I wouldn't right away because you don't really have the mana to cast it.
The worst, I guess you could tutor for. Yeah, that's like Mystical Tutor. You'd want it to turn into a Dockside probably, but there really isn't any card here that like actually does that well. So you
If
probably
we
just
had
actually
a
get interaction.
if we had a dork tutoring for Eldritch Evolution is just sick. But I
Yeah, I
mean
agree.
that
I
that
think it is a Fierce Guardianship. I think that's
that's
what this
really where this
is.
deck starts popping off. Yeah,
All right,
I can go with that.
all right. Um, I think how we've been going at it for about 20 minutes. I think we can do one more.
Sure.
City of Brass, Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal, Eternal Witness, Snap, Neoform, Misty Rainforest. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, sorry. My screen just froze. Give me a moment. Okay, there we go. This hand is pretty cool. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let me look at it again. So the sad thing is we don't really have anything to neoform, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I
We do
mean,
have the Eternal Witness, but that doesn't really find anything useful.
we have the turn two Malcolm, which is amazing, and we might draw a creature. Like, I mean, this deck does run almost 20 creatures.
Yeah, and the LED is actually like surprisingly good.
Yeah, no, you can also, since we have Snap here, if you draw a dork, you could cast the dork, and you could cast Neoform on the dork, gain Dockside, and you could snap the Dockside,
Oh, that's interesting.
which is interesting. Like, I mean, it doesn't get you too far, but like that's also an interesting interaction.
Yeah. Mm. I think if you like, funny enough, you could probably you'd probably end up doing is you neoform the dork, get dockside, snap the dockside, replay the dockside, eternal witness back to neoform into buccaneer,
Oh my gosh,
and then you could LED for Malcolm.
yeah, that works. That actually works, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think you're. How much mana would your dockside need to make? It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
What was the 1, 2?
It's sorry, it might be like 4. It needs to make or 5.
Yeah, which is totally possible.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable. You just have to draw a dork, which is not as reasonable, but it's reasonable.
Right. You could, like, well, I mean, worst case scenario, this hand you cast Tana, and then you run out of
Oh,
gas,
that's
you
true.
cast Tana, and you neoform Tana into Frostfang.
That's a good point. And then your Eternal Witness and Malcolm can start getting card advantage.
Right, and there's kind of like I've had a game before where the game was shut down. We had a Stax deck at the table. No one was doing anything. I had Neoform in hand, and I cast Tana, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
Neoform the Tana right away. I just attacked with her a few times to create some Saplings,
Oh wow, that's really powerful.
and
That's
then
really
cast
cool.
Neoform on Tana into Frostfang, and just drew like 7 cards a turn,
That's really really cool.
and just absolutely destroyed the table.
Yeah, that's I hadn't considered that interaction. That's really sick. That's
Yeah.
really really cool. All right.
No, and Hana does some things like she increased the creature count for Gaia's Cradle and Frostfang, which I mean is
Those are
kind
both
of okay.
relevant. Those are both like very relevant. Are you on Boreal Druid?
We were on Boreal Druid until I think it was Deke suggested we get off of it and play another 2-drop so that we have another thing to neoform into Glinthorn Buccaneer. Um
That's fair. I
like
kind of like being on. I think you should. I think that's important. Is like play cards like Boreal, not Boreal, Boom Tender,
mhm.
and like those 2 drops. Make sure you have a healthy amount of them. But I also think Boreal Druid's probably correct.
Yeah, I'm thinking about replacing Wild Growth with Boreal Druid.
I think that's probably for the best because if you already have a green for Boreal Druid, like you don't really need double green ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean for Chord or like Finale or Eldritch Evolution, but the deck's pretty good at making green, and plus
Yeah,
Treasures kind of smooths all that
Malcolm.
out.
Yeah, I was about to say Malcolm kind of fixes your mana a bit,
Yeah, the
and
mana fixing
also
is
you can if you have a cord, you can just tap Boreal Druid to cord, like
right. Yeah,
to convoke. So yeah, that doesn't even
true.
matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter
So
at all. So yeah, no, Boreal Druid's probably good. Originally we put it in to replace Arcane Signet. No idea why we were running Arcane Signet in the first place, but for some reason we didn't catch that it didn't get a turn to Malcolm.
I think it's fine because you're on Jessica's will. Like you might want
Mm-hmm.
one card like that, but I don't think so. You probably don't really need it.
No, I don't think so.
Jessica's will
We do
does
have lots
push
of
you towards stuff
artifacts that
like
we
that.
can cast, mostly 0-drops, so it can kind of dig into
Yeah,
that. But
yeah.
no,
It's just like those cards help Jessica's will mana filter, but Malcolm already does that, so it's fine.
right? And I mean, even if you miss with Jessica's Will, it's still a great ram piece, and it also gets rid of the top 3 dead cards of your library.
I don't think the exiling the top 3 get rid of the 3 dead cards is very relevant, but I do
No,
think
but like,
I
I mean,
think the
that's the
fact
worst
that
scenario.
that yeah, I just think that the fact that like the card that you're most worried about exiling is a red card, you know, that's the worst case scenario. And so the fact that Jessica's Will makes the 3 mana is pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, Jessica's Will has definitely been a great include in the deck. Just hitting Wheel of actually hitting. I take that back. Jessica's Will, whatever it gets, is going to be good because you have plenty. You're going to have other mana on the board most likely.
Yeah, that's a
Or
good
like
point.
generally, I cast Jessica's Will before I move to combat, just in case I hit a Glinthorn Buccaneer. But like, let's say you don't hit the Glinthorn and you need more mana, you can just attack with Malcolm and create the treasures you need, get the colors.
Yeah. Have you considered Wheel of Misfortune? If you
Yes, I have been considering Wheel of Misfortune. I don't play it because it doesn't interact well with Hull Breacher, but this deck does play well with the wheels because it
I
refilling
mean,
our hand.
if you have a Hull Breacher in play, you just draw 7 for 3 mana, which is good, right? They're like, right, like that's
Yeah,
like that
I
bad.
guess I guess that's really true. Yeah, I would consider it. It's just that we're running like all the good wheels in our colors right now, besides Wheel of Misfortune. So I
Yeah,
mean, we would just have to cut something else for it, and we're already running a pretty high density of wheels, so I'm just not sure that we really need it.
that's true.
But
Um,
the other upside though is it can lower our opponent's life totals, especially the ones who are playing. Actually, yeah, with just as far as without the Hull Breacher. Because I'm playing against a lot of turbo decks right now, and they're obviously very life dependent, and just being able to take a huge chunk of their life total away with Wheel of Misfortune can be pretty powerful, especially if they've
yeah,
really need extra cards.
I don't think that'll end up happening very often.
No, no, it probably won't either. You
Can
probably
you
pay the
talk
most
about
life.
Yeah, can you talk about the survival of the fittest lines? Because I feel like that's one of the more unknown aspects of the deck that's like really interesting.
Okay, this is
Um,
a pretty insane interaction. I wasn't the one who figured this out. I think it was Drunken Dragon Highlander. It's pretty sick. So if you have a survival of the fittest on the battlefield, and you have Glenhorn Buccaneer on the battlefield as well, like I don't know, maybe you still survival of the fittest to tutor for it, and assuming that no one counters your Glenhorn Buccaneer and it's on the battlefield, and then you move to combat, but in response to combat, someone tries to kill your Glenhorn Buccaneer. If you have a creature in your hand, you can in response activate the survival of the fittest, discarding that creature, and what's going to happen here is since you discard a card, Glenhorn Buccaneer is going to trigger, dealing 1 damage to each your opponent, creating 3 treasures. So survival. Okay, so after you discard the card, survival of fittest, you go get your other creature or whatever. But then you can use one of those treasures to discard that creature, and you can continue this loop until every creature in your deck is in your graveyard, and you've done like I don't know 17 damage to your opponents. And the last card you tutor for would be Spellseeker, and then you'd move through
mhm,
combat, and then you'd cast Spellseeker first on your second main phase, and you would
mhm.
grab a sorry, give me a moment. I'm trying to remember all the exact points of this line. It was pretty complicated. I believe you grab was it yeah, you grab
The finale of
Snap.
it.
You grab Snap,
I see.
and you
Okay.
cast Snap on Hull Breacher, or on the Hull Breacher on the Spellseeker, and then
Hmm.
you cast the Spellseeker again, searching for Muddle the Mixture, and then you transmute
Hmm.
Muddle the Mixture for Underworld Breach, and then you cast you have a lot of mana because you netted 2 mana each time you activate Survival of
Yeah.
Fittest. And then you cast Snap from your graveyard, targeting the Spellseeker. You cast Spellseeker again, and give me a moment. Brain Freeze.
And then you brain freeze yourself.
Yeah, you Brain Freeze yourself, and then eventually you can just cast Hull Breacher and then start wheeling and creating a ton of treasures, and just go through
Yeah.
normal breach lines.
You also can probably like finale of devastation with all that mana. Like that's also
Right.
probably perfectly fine. You
Absolutely.
know. So yeah, that line is super sick, right?
Yeah, there was another line to it too. I'm sorry I don't have it all memorized. I usually play with the. Yeah, no,
The
okay.
primer
I
of
think
it.
that I think
Yeah.
that's the basic Underworld breach line though.
Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah, it's
So I'm happy you could
a fun
share that.
interaction
All
for
right.
sure.
Yeah. So thanks again for coming on and talking about a pretty sick deck. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
I
no.
hope people check out this deck list. I'll be leaving it in the description along with the link to the Discord where there's a bunch of people talking about Malcolm. There's a few other Malcolm decks that are currently getting brewed. There's a Grixis deck. There's Breaches. There's Timna. So if you're interested in Malcolm and the Buccaneers, you should check that out. Thanks again.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Have a good one.